It's a big day here in Parliament House. The Prime Ministerial Portrait Collection, resolutely an all-male affair for more than 100 years, is finally getting a little boost of X chromosomes. Australia's 27th Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, will be unveiled in portrait form today. G'day, Justine.
Hi, Annabelle.
I'm here to inspect your Prime Ministerial gallery. So is this kind of your most famous Prime Ministerial portrait? It's very distinctive.
I think it's certainly one of the most recognisable of the Australian Prime Minister's portraits.
Looking up and down this gallery, look, one word springs to mind and that would be male.
Yes. Yes.
How much of a splash is this new painting going to make?
Look, I think it's going to be a sharp contrast for a number of reasons. Of course, Miss Gillard is the first woman and, you know, the artist has a particularly strong style that I think is quite appealing now.
There's nothing like a bit of artful anticipation.
I decided there was one story that this portrait could tell. It could tell the story that I was different from every Prime Minister that had come before, that I was the first woman to serve in this role.
There's no doubt that this portrait will stand out dramatically from its colleagues in the gallery of former Prime Ministers. Ms Gillard, congratulations on being hung.
Thank you very much. It was painless and I recovered.
Look, it's an incredibly striking painting and it's sort of dominated by your rather quizzical half smile. What are you smiling at?
That's right, smiling at Vincent as he was painting. Look, I think we talked about, you know, the presentation and what we wanted the portrait to say, and I did want to get an image that was a mixture of, you know, strength but also, you know, warmth and humanity. I mean, we had a lot of laughs while we were doing it. Politics gave me a lot of laughs as well as a lot of serious moments and opportunities to do big things, and so I think it's an attempt to try and capture that combination.
Vincent, that arresting sort of full-face style is a signature of yours. Why is it particularly appropriate when portraitising Australia's first female Prime Minister?
We wanted to take away the influence of fashion and things, ways you could be judged outside of your achievements and who you actually are. So I think minimalising things and trying to keep it simple and honest was part of the process.
Were you determined that this would be an occasion on which you wouldn't be criticised for your jacket?
Exactly, exactly. No, that was a really conscious discussion and choice. I mean, one of the things that I think is frustrating for women in leadership roles at the moment still is that there is endless commentary about what they're wearing. For me, being the first female Prime Minister, I mean, there were times when it was just truly absurd. You know, you'd be going in and out of a NATO meeting in Brussels to talk about our strategy for fighting a war in Afghanistan, and people would be commenting on what jacket you were wearing. And so I did in this want to entirely take clothes out of the equation.
Did you find out anything about Julia Gillard, the person, that you found surprising?
I think what surprised me the most is how funny you are. She's got a really great sense of humour. Some of the jokes I can't even tell you.
Probably unprintable.
No, she has a really great sense of humour.
Ms Gillard, do you ever feel that your sense of humour is something that people missed about you in those tumultuous years while you were Prime Minister?
I think so, and I think in some ways that as a leader, but particularly as a female leader, there's a fairly narrow path of behaviour that you've got to stay on. As the first woman, I was really conscious that if I was too funny, giggly, then that would be sort of silly girl, why is she running the country? She's clearly just, you know, sort of a good time girl.
Looking at the fortunes of Julie Bishop over the last few months, are you encouraged or discouraged about progress?
I'm encouraged generally, which might seem a little bit of an odd thing to say, but looking at recent months in politics, what struck me is that there has been a lively debate about sexism in politics, about the potential of women being bullied in politics, and that's a big change.
We're here to talk about your portrait and not the literary works of your predecessor, but it's obvious that Kevin Rudd's volume 2 of the memoir is out this week, the central claim in which seems to be that he'd sat you down in early 2010 and offered you the Prime Ministership down the track when he became UN Secretary-General. Do you remember that interaction at all?
Well, the approach I'm taking to this is I did write my book very quickly after my time in politics, and it deals comprehensively with how I became Prime Minister and the workings of the government that I led. I don't think it's a secret to anyone that my recollections and Kevin's aren't the same, and so you'd expect that to be reflected in his book.
This is a day of thinking about legacy. Do you ever worry that your legacy is, as Prime Minister, is overshadowed by the means by which you became Prime Minister and the controversy around that?
It's always going to be part of the story, and how people became Prime Minister is always part of the story. How Bob Hawke became Prime Minister, how Paul Keating became Prime Minister, and so on it goes. I knew you're conscious of the fact that because you hold the position of Prime Minister that there will be that historical overview of your contribution, but it's not how I judge myself.
Yeah, I think young girls are going to walk through Parliament and they're going to see your portrait there, and they're not going to be, that story is not important to them. It's, there's a female first Prime Minister and I can do that. I think that's special.
I hope that's it too.
Plan International did a survey of Australian women earlier this year, 2,000 of them, and of the 18 to 25-year-old women surveyed, 0% of them expressed an interest in a career in politics. What would you say to those young women?
There is nothing like politics to give you the opportunity to put your values into action. And for me personally, if, a time capsule took me back to that moment when I became Prime Minister and I knew every day was going to play out the same, I'd still do it again in a heartbeat. It's a privilege to be able to serve as Prime Minister. So to those young women, please get involved. And you never know, you could end up getting your portrait done by Vincent.
Well, congratulations, and may you hang there proudly for generations.
Thank you.